G'day to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5am Club. Just going to go on a walk and talk today, see where it leads us. I'm just over here at Fingal Bay, and I plan on walking to the Spit, and we'll do a book summary. And the book summary that I've chosen for this morning is entitled When the Body Says No. And it's written by an author named Gabor Mate. And we'll see where this book takes us. It's a winter's day, it's Tuesday, and I'm at Fingal Bay up here at Port Stephens. It was very, very cold this morning. There was a light breeze which numbed the fingers. But I'm kind of thinking that it's getting a little bit milder now. And the beach here at Fingal Bay is absolutely at its finest. Wow. What can I say? Fingal Bay, you've outdone yourself this morning. We've got a sailing boat there in the middle of the bay. And it's a very, very flat, beautifully presented beach. As you can see, it circles all the way around, and what I'll do is I'll head over there to the centre of the screen, and we'll do a couple of 5am clubs. I think I've got plenty of time today. So where's this book going to take us? So let's go for a bit of a walk along the beach. And this book here basically focuses on the topic of stress and helps us understand stress a little bit better, how to manage it, how to leverage it, and to understand it a little bit better, as I suggested. So the book kicks off with a point where it says that research shows that there are three key things that lead to stress. Three key things that lead to stress, and those three things are uncertainty, lack of information, and loss of control. So if anybody that we know is experiencing any of those three, either individually or combined in any way, then chances are that they're experiencing stress. And what the author goes on to say, that when you're feeling stressed, that if you're trying to repress it and to hide it and to not deal with it, that too can lead to further stress and endangers your physical and mental health. So there you go, talking about stress on this stressless day in this stressless environment. So let's continue our walk and talk, listening to the waves just lapping onto the beach. So the author then goes on to talk about the importance of dealing with problems and not to deny the issues, not to deny the fact that we've got a problem, because with denial comes delay. And the longer it takes for us to address a problem, then the worse it gets. I learnt many years ago as a young man that the longer I delayed in terms of addressing and dealing with something, it just got harder and harder. And I think we all understand that. So the immediate call to action is to address your issues, try and nip them in the bud as early as possible, even if it's hard, even if it's painful. just nip it in the bud, sort it out. Because if you don't deal with the stresses and problems in your life, what the author here suggests is that can lead to both mental and physical illness. So we owe it to ourselves, I guess, is the key point, to deal with things as early as we can and as effectively as we can, remembering that there's no efficient way of dealing with problems, but we can effectively deal with problems, and the more effective you are, then naturally that effectiveness is going to become an efficient means as well. Because, like it or not, our minds and our bodies, our physical and our mental health are deeply connected. And the author then also says, and many people may not be aware of this, but mental stresses can manifest as a physical disease. So what's going on in your head can become a problem that is felt and expressed in your body as well. So think about it and do something about it, because these lessons are very, very powerful, regardless of your age and regardless of your belief system. These are things which are universal for each and every one of us. So after that prelude, what we can do is we can talk about the formal points which come out of the book. And the author says here that stress happens when our bodies perceive a threat, and it affects every system in our body. So the author is very, very clever in what they're saying here, because what they're saying is that stress happens when your body perceives a threat. It doesn't say when it receives a threat, but when it perceives a threat. So it means that we've thought about things in a way and we've accepted something as a threat, even though it may not be real. Because what happens is that what makes a stressor for one person is completely individual. You know yourself, with your friends and family, some people just get freaked out with some things and so bloody stressed. You see it all the time now with COVID-19. The people are stressed and worried about AstraZeneca and that it causes blood clots, even though it's 1 in 2 million cases. The chances of getting a blood clot from an AstraZeneca vaccination is near to nothing. And yet people will stress out about it, will fight about it, will make posts about it, and will just continue to spread fear, uncertainty and doubt in a way which is disproportionate to the risk. But then again, as the author says here and alludes to, that different people react differently to perceived stresses. And I guess we need to acknowledge that and to respect it, I guess, is one important thing to consider. So most types of stress, as we mentioned before, are a result of a perceived threat to our survival in some way or another. So we're worried about surviving. The impacts on our body we may not be aware of, but the main place it affects, so when we're stressed, what happens is there's a whole number of systems that are impacted and things that happen at the same time below the surface, which we may not be aware of all that well. But to let us know the author says that basically when you're stressed, it impacts your hormones. Your immune system is impacted. Your digestive system is impacted because stress initiates the secretion of cortisol, which is a hormone, an adrenaline type hormone is passed into your bloodstream, into your brain. And what cortisol does is it makes your heart beat faster to enable the blood to move around your body. But at the same time, what it does is it shuts down other parts of your system. So it suppresses your immune system. So your immune system is temporarily shut down so the body can focus on the fight, flight, or freeze response that's required. So cortisol makes your heart beat faster, and it's great. It's great for short-term threats that we may have. For example, you may be about to get run down by a cyclist, so it's important to be able to jump out of the way. Or you're driving your car and a car's stopped in front or goes through a red light. It's great to be able to immediately react and hit the brakes and do whatever you have to do to save yourself and the occupants of your car from a car accident. But where it's really bad is when stress becomes chronic. And there are people in our lives, people around us, people that we work with, people that we live with, people that we socialise with, who are constantly stressed. And this constant level of stress is called chronic stress. And this is where stress becomes a really big issue, when it's become chronic, because the person is always in a state of stress, which means that the person is always constantly secreting cortisol into their bloodstream, which is making their heart beat faster, which is getting hormones working in different ways. But worst of all, it's causing the immune system to be constantly suppressed, meaning that your immune system can't look after yourself in a structured and a productive serving way. So when you get overwhelmed, because people who are stressed basically are overwhelmed. When you get overwhelmed, your body begins to attack itself, according to this author, which is not a good way to be. Because when we're overwhelmed, we want our bodies to be protecting us, not to be attacking us. But it's just the way we're wired. It's just the way we're set up, that when we're overwhelmed, things don't work in our favour. Because what happens is that stress can cause your immune system to attack the body, like joints, connective tissue and organs. Not good, not good. And autoimmune diseases are an example where, and the author says here, I don't know how true it is, but it is a bit of a worry if it is true, that when we repress our emotions, so this is why we shouldn't be worrying, this is why we shouldn't be hanging out with people who cause us problems and issues and stresses, because what the author here says that when you're emotionally repressed, so you can't express your emotions, or you've been disappointed and upset over and over again in many, many ways, what it does is it leads to an immune reactivity, which in some ways, as I say, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I think the point that the author is trying to make in this book is that when you're holding back your anger and you're boiling up inside, that will cause problems with your immune system, which could lead to autoimmune disease and other problems. So please, if there's one lesson to take from this book, is to A, try and live with less stress in your life. Don't bottle up your emotions. Find ways of releasing without causing issues for others around you. And be careful, because the only person that can really look after you is yourself. Don't rely on your partner. Don't rely on your children, your parents, grandparents. You need to take full responsibility and accountability for your physical and mental health, which means that we need to manage stress as best we can. Which leads us to the last point in this book. How do you beat stress? And I guess one of the best things to do is not to give a damn. To learn to, don't get too caught up with things. Don't overreact to things, because nothing is really worth it in the end, especially if it means that it will cost you your physical and mental health. Look, one of the key messages that I put out, and one of the purposes of me engineering this Jim's 5 a.m. club, is to try and act as a platform for empowerment, for growth and development, for anybody who is in need, and we all are in need of working together, partnering with each other to enhance our growth and development. The author here says that you can beat stress, first of all, by removing the negative thinking that you have in your life and the fears, because as we've said on many occasions, most of the fears that we have are irrational fears that we've just made up, or other people have made up, the media has made up, we've inherited, but the chances of those fears actually causing a real problem are less than 10%, if not even less than that. But just as a rule of thumb, always say to yourself, whenever you fear something, always say to yourself that the chance of this fear manifesting itself and becoming real is less than 1 in 10 chances, which puts it into proportion. So the author also says that we've got to be careful with positivity, because positivity is also a bit of a challenge and a bit of an issue, because being too positive can be harmful, because sometimes people who are too positive are positive because that's their coping mechanism, where they're in denial of the reality around them. So there needs to be a balance between being too positive and being too negative, but to not fall into the trap of going to the extreme at either end. Sometimes we need to acknowledge our negative emotions and not to ignore them, is the point that the author is telling us here in this book as well. Because when you ignore your negative emotions, when you sweep it under the carpet and you repress those emotions, it increases our stress levels, either at the conscious or the subconscious level, or both. So you've got to understand that stress happens at both the conscious and subconscious level. So while you may be conning yourself and kidding yourself into being positive, you know deep down that if you're repressing the truth, or you're trying to deny it or not acknowledge it, then you could be causing more damage below the surface. So it's okay to be negative, as the author says, but being negative sometimes, not being negative all the time. There are people who are chronically negative. You know, give them a solution and they'll find the problem, or they'll always be looking to be the party pooper and the joy killer. So I think that's about it. So it's important to have our problems, acknowledge our problems, don't deny or hide our problems, but most importantly, to deal and fix those problems as best you can, as early as you can. If you can do it yourself, or get some help. But you've got to deal with those problems so that you can live a better quality life, is the key message. Anyway, that comes to the end of yet another 5 a.m. Club. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5 a.m. Club. I'm just doing my walk along Fingal Bay Beach, and as you can see, it's a glorious morning. It's a winter's morning, not as cold as what it was earlier, so it's just beautiful. So let's finish up with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, I feel absolutely great. My friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, stay reasonable, and most importantly, let's try and learn to deal with stress and to nip it in the bud and to deal with it without being overly too positive, and just understanding that the stress can happen at the conscious and subconscious level, but we need to deal with it. The big lesson: deal with your stress and deal with it early, and don't repress your emotions, but let them flow and let them be real. So let's finish off with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I'm well, I feel absolutely great. My friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, stay reasonable, and enjoy these moments, enjoy these days, and do whatever you can to manage your stress, as we said. And I look forward to coming to you again from a different location with a different message, a message of empowerment, where we can be the wind beneath our wings, where we can learn different things, life hacks from other people's experiences, from books, that will allow us to live, learn and pass it on, and to get through the day, through the week, through our lives, and ultimately be partners in each other's development, because we all have skills, we all have gifts that we can help and use to enhance each other's lives. So I think I'll leave it there. So thank you very much. And it's a beautiful, beautiful day. I hope that you too one day can get out of the house, get a camera and do your own vlogs and share your experiences, your messages of empowerment. Yassas, take care. Bye for now.